June 26, 1943, 24,000 feet over the English Channel. The air is thin, cold, and deceptive. To the naked eye, the sky is a sprawling canvas of peaceful blue. But inside the cockpit of the P-47 Thunderbolt named Half Pint, Second Lieutenant Robert S. Johnson knows better. The sky is a slaughterhouse waiting to open its doors. Johnson is 23 years old, a stocky, square-jawed kid from Oklahoma who wrestles airplanes the way he used to wrestle steer. He is strapped into the largest, heaviest, most complex single-engine fighter ever built. The Republic P-47 Thunderbolt is not a rapier, it is a bludgeon. It weighs 7 tons fully loaded. It has a 2,000 horsepower Pratt & Whitney R2800 double wasp engine in the nose, an 18-cylinder radial beast that drinks 100 gallons of high-octane fuel an hour and spits out pure kinetic energy. Today, Johnson is flying Tail End Charlie, the last man in the formation of the 56th Fighter Group, the Wolf Pack. It is the position of the orphan. You are the last to turn, the last to climb, and the first to die if the Germans bounce you. The mission is an escort run for B-17 flying fortresses hitting the airfield at Villacoublay, France. The bombers are ahead, great silver moths lumbering through the flak. Johnson checks his gauges. Manifold pressure, 42 inches. Cylinder head temperature, 200 degrees. Oil pressure, 80 psi. The machine is singing. The vibration of the R2800 is a comforting numbness in his hands and feet. The margin between a hero and a casualty often comes down to a single rivet, a single piston, or a single decision made in the blink of an eye. If you want to ride shotgun on the most harrowing survival stories of WWII, smash that like button and subscribe. We're about to dive into a fight where the only weapon left is the airframe itself. Bandits 4 o'clock high. The warning screams through the headset. Johnson snaps his head right. He sees them. 16 Focke-Wulf 190s, the butcher birds, diving out of the sun. They are sleek radial engine predators, painted in the mottled grays and greens of the Jagdschwader. They are fast, agile, and heavily armed with 20 cannons. The American formation breaks. Drop tanks, the leader orders. Johnson reaches for the release lever. The heavy 200-gallon belly tank falls away. The P-47 leaps upward, lighter by 1,000 pounds. But Johnson makes a mistake, a rookie mistake. In the adrenaline haze of the break, he doesn't check his position relative to the rest of the flight. He turns too sharply, trying to get his nose on the enemy. He slides out of the formation. He is suddenly alone in the sky. And the Germans see him. The Focke-Wulf swarm. They recognize the isolated P-47 as easy meat. A single Thunderbolt, separated from the herd, is heavy and slow to accelerate. Johnson sees the tracers flashing past his canopy, bright yellow streaks of magnesium fire. He kicks the rudder, jinking the big plane. He spots a FW-190 crossing his nose. He pulls the trigger. The 8.50 caliber machine guns in his wings roar, a chainsaw sound that vibrates his entire skeleton. He sees strikes, pieces of the German wing fly off. But then the world explodes. A 20 cannon shell from an unseen attacker slams into Johnson's fuselage. It hits the hydraulic system. Then another shell hits the engine. Bang! The cockpit instantly fills with a mist of acrid burning fluid, hydraulic oil, engine oil, smoke. Johnson gasps, his eyes stinging. He wipes his goggles, but the oil is everywhere. It coats the windscreen, it coats the instrument panel, it coats him. Then the engine changes its tune. The deep, throaty roar of the double wasp turns into a horrific metal-on-metal grinding. One of the cylinders has been blown off. The master rod is flailing. The engine is eating itself alive. Oil sprays over the canopy glass, turning the bright blue sky into an opaque brown smear. Johnson is blind. He grabs the throttle, it's unresponsive. The engine is surging and coughing, spitting black smoke. The tachometer is fluctuating wildly. He has lost power. He has lost hydraulics. The flaps won't work. The landing gear might be dead. And he has 16 Focke-Wulfs queuing up to kill him. "Mayday, mayday, this is Johnson. I'm hit. I'm blind." He hears nothing but static. The radio is dead. A shell fragment has severed the antenna wire. Johnson is in a 7-ton metal coffin, falling through the sky over occupied France, with a dying engine and a cockpit full of fire hazards. He does the only thing he can do. He puts the nose down. "Dive," he screams at himself. "Dive, you heavy bastard." The P-47 is famous for one thing above all else. It falls faster than anything in the world. Its density is its salvation. Johnson shoves the stick forward. The Thunderbolt groans and tips over. He can't see forward. He can only see out of the side panels. He watches the altimeter unwind. 20,000 feet, 15,000 feet, 10,000 feet. The Focke-Wulfs are following him. They know he is crippled. They are like wolves chasing a wounded bison. They don't need to be brave, they just need to be persistent. Johnson pulls out of the dive at 5,000 feet, terrified that the wings might rip off or the engine might seize completely from the over-revving. The P-47 shudders, levels out and keeps flying. But the engine is barely producing thrust. It is coughing, chugging, misfiring. The propeller is spinning, but it's not biting the air. He is essentially flying a glider with a very bad glide ratio. He looks to his left. A Focke-Wulf 190 pulls up alongside him. The German pilot is close, so close Johnson can see his oxygen mask. The German looks at the battered, oil-soaked Thunderbolt. He probably wonders why it's still in the air. The German drops back to the saddle position, dead astern. He is lining up the execution shot. Johnson grips the stick. His hands are slippery with oil. He waits. He knows the German is there. He can feel the eyes on his neck. The German fires. Johnson waits for the impact. He waits for the shells to tear through the armor plate behind his seat and turn his spine into shrapnel. But the impact is weird. Thump, thump, thump. Bullets strike the wings, the fuselage, but the plane doesn't explode. Johnson realizes something. The P-47 is flying dirty. Because of the engine damage and the loss of hydraulic pressure, the cowl flaps. The metal gills around the engine used for cooling have likely blown open or jammed. The rudder is damaged. The plane is crabbing. It is flying sideways through the air. To Johnson, inside the cockpit, it feels like he is flying straight. But to the German pilot behind him, the P-47 is moving in a constant, unpredictable slip. The German is aiming at the fuselage, but the fuselage is skidding 5 degrees to the right of the flight path. The German's bullets are passing through the empty space where the P-47 should be, or hitting non-critical parts of the massive wings. Johnson's broken engine, by failing to provide symmetrical torque and smooth power, has turned his plane into a drunken, stumbling ghost. He is not outsmarting them with a maneuver. He is outsmarting them with the chaos of a dying machine. The German pilot, frustrated, pulls closer. He is determined to finish this. He closes to 100 yards. Johnson watches the mirror, wiping the oil away with his sleeve. He sees the muzzle flashes. "Come on," Johnson whispers, his voice cracking with fear and rage. "Is that all you got? Is that all you got?" The P-47 takes the hits. It absorbs them. The radial engine, even with a cylinder blown, keeps turning. The airframe, built like a bridge, holds together. Johnson realizes he has a chance. A slim, terrifying chance. If he can keep the plane wallowing, if he can keep it skidding, the Germans can't get a clean convergence point on his cockpit. He starts to kick the rudder pedals rhythmically. Left, right, left, right. He induces a Dutch roll, a sick swaying motion that makes the aircraft yaw and roll simultaneously. It is nauseating. It ruins his own aerodynamics. It bleeds what little speed he has left. But it makes him the hardest target in the sky. The German pilot empties his guns. He runs dry. He peels off, diving away in frustration. Johnson lets out a breath he didn't know he was holding. "One down," he says. But then he looks to his right. There are more. 3 more Focke-Wulfs are lining up, and this time they aren't playing around. They are led by an ace, a man who knows exactly how to kill a wounded animal. Johnson pats the oil-slicked instrument panel. "Don't quit on me," he begs the broken machine. "Don't you dare quit." The English Channel is a cold, gray slab of iron waiting below. Robert Johnson is at 3,000 feet, descending steadily. His P-47 is a sieve. The canopy is shattered in places, letting the freezing slipstream howl into the cockpit, mixing with the hot oil and smoke. His engine, the mighty R-2800, is no longer roaring. It is coughing, a sick, rhythmic hacking sound. Chug, chug, bang, chug. Every backfire sends a shudder through the airframe that Johnson feels in his teeth. He is losing altitude at a rate of 500 feet per minute. At this rate, he will be swimming in 6 minutes. But swimming is the least of his worries. The second wave of attackers arrives. These aren't the opportunistic pilots from the first pass. These are the wingmen of Oberstleutnant Egon Mayer, the commander of JG-2 Richthofen. Mayer is a legend. He invented the head-on attack against B-17s. He is a surgeon in the air. Mayer's wingmen see the Crippled Thunderbolt. It looks pathetic. It is trailing a plume of black smoke. It is flying in a bizarre, slipping yaw. It should be an easy kill. One FW-190 slides in from the left quarter. He wants to rake the P-47 from nose to tail. Johnson sees him, but Johnson has no throttle. He can't accelerate to get out of the way. He can't climb. He has only one form of energy left, potential energy, altitude, converting to kinetic energy, speed. He trades altitude for life. As the German opens fire, Johnson kicks the rudder hard and pushes the nose down. The P-47 drops like a stone. The heavy fuselage, weighing 7 tons, accelerates purely by gravity. The German's deflection shot goes high. The tracers zip harmlessly over Johnson's canopy. But now Johnson is lower, 2,500 feet. The German overshoots. He flies past Johnson, pulling up to come around for another pass. Johnson realizes the physics of the fight have inverted. Normally, a fighter pilot wants speed and altitude, but Johnson is flying a brick. A brick has one advantage: it stops faster than a feather. Because his engine is failing, his propeller is acting like a giant air brake. The huge 4-bladed Hamilton standard prop is windmilling, creating massive drag. When Johnson cuts the throttle, or when the engine dies momentarily, the P-47 decelerates violently. The sleek, aerodynamic Focke-Wulfs behind him are clean. They are fast. They are expecting a target that maintains 250 mph. Johnson is doing 160 mph. When they dive on him, they close too fast. They have only a split second to aim before they are in danger of ramming him. A second German tries. He comes in dead astern. He lines up the shot. Johnson watches the mirror. He waits. He waits until the German commits. Then Johnson pulls the stick back into his gut and stomps on the right rudder. The P-47 performs a snap stall. It shudders, the left wing drops, and the nose whips around. It is an ugly, uncontrolled departure from flight. The plane literally falls out of the sky, tumbling. The German pilot, terrified of colliding with the tumbling American, yanks his stick back and brakes left. He misses Johnson by feet. Johnson neutralizes the controls. The P-47, stable as a table, catches the air again. He levels out at 1,500 feet. He has forced another overshoot. He has outsmarted another enemy not with skill, but by weaponizing his plane's inability to fly properly. But the abuse is taking its toll. The snap stall stressed the airframe. The engine is vibrating so badly that the instrument needles are blurry. And now the boss is here. Egon Mayer himself pulls up alongside Johnson. Johnson looks out the side of his oil-smeared canopy. He sees the yellow nose of Mayer's Focke-Wulf. He sees the Knight's Cross painted on the fuselage. Mayer is examining him. This is a rare moment in aerial warfare. The predator is studying the prey. Mayer is looking at the holes in the P-47's wings. He sees the rudder hanging by a shred. He sees the oil covering the pilot. Mayer shakes his head. He cannot believe this thing is still flying. Mayer drops back. He is not going to make a mistake. He is not going to overshoot. He is going to execute a textbook gunnery pass. He swings out to the right, opening the angle. He wants a deflection shot that will put rounds into the cockpit from the side, bypassing the heavy armor plate behind Johnson's seat. Johnson knows what's coming, the high-side run. Johnson tries to turn into the attack. He pushes the stick right. Nothing happens. The ailerons are sluggish. The hydraulic boost is gone. The control cables might be frayed. The heavy P-47 refuses to bank. It just wallows. "Turn, damn you," Johnson screams, putting both hands on the stick and shoving with his shoulders. The plane slowly, agonizingly begins to roll, but it's too slow. Mayer is already firing. Bang, 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 bang. The 20 shells hit the fuselage. They sound like sledgehammers. One hits the instrument panel, shattering the glass dials. Another hits the turbocharger ducting. Johnson flinches, curling into a ball in the cockpit, waiting for the fire. The P-47 has a massive fuel tank in the fuselage. If a tracer hits it, he burns. But there is no fire. The P-47's legendary ruggedness is saving him. The self-sealing fuel tanks are swallowing the bullets. The heavy duralumin skin is shredding, but the structural spars are holding. Johnson realizes he can't turn. He can't fight. He is a sitting duck. He decides to play dead. He lets the nose drop. He stops fighting the rudder. He lets the plane slip into a gentle, erratic descent toward the water. 1,000 feet, 800 feet. He hopes Mayer will think he is finished. He hopes the German will save his ammo for a target that fights back. He watches the mirror. Mayer is still there. He is circling. He is watching. Mayer flies alongside again. He looks at Johnson. He rocks his wings. For a second, Johnson thinks it's a salute, a gesture of chivalry. "You fought well, American. I will let you swim." But then Mayer drops back again. It wasn't a salute. It was a range check. Mayer lines up directly behind Johnson. He is going to deliver the coup de grace. He is going to aim for the one spot that isn't armored, the oil cooler intake under the engine, or the cockpit glass itself. Johnson has 500 feet of altitude. He has no speed. He has a gun that might work, but he can't bring it to bear. He has one card left to play, the wallow. The engine is surging, vroom, die, Johnson times it. As Mayer opens fire, Johnson pumps the rudder pedals in time with the engine surges. The P-47 begins to fishtail violently. The nose swings left, then right, then left. The entire aircraft yaws 15 degrees off-center. Mayer's tracers stream past the cockpit. They pass through the space between the wing and the tail. They hit the air. The P-47 is a 14,000-pound pendulum. It swings back and forth, refusing to travel in a straight line. Mayer corrects. He kicks his own rudder, but the P-47 swings the other way. It is a dance of geometry. Mayer is trying to shoot a straight line at a target that is moving in a sine wave. The German pilot empties his cannons. Click. He has fired everything he has. Mayer pulls up alongside Johnson for the third time. He looks at the P-47. It is riddled with holes. It is leaking fluids. It is flying sideways. Mayer looks at Johnson. Johnson looks at Mayer. The German ace shakes his head again. He raises a gloved hand. He salutes. Then he peels off and banks toward France. Johnson is alone. He checks the altimeter, 100 feet. He is skimming the waves. The engine is still dying. The coast of England is 40 miles away. He has survived the wolves. Now he has to survive the water. The silence after the combat is heavier than the noise of the guns. Robert Johnson is flying at 50 feet above the English Channel. The white caps of the waves look like teeth waiting to chew up the aluminum carcass of half Pint. His cockpit is a disaster zone. The instrument panel is shattered. The floor is slick with oil. The wind howls through the holes in the canopy, freezing the sweat on his face. He tries to take stock of the damage. Engine, 3 cylinders are dead. The top cylinder has been shot away. The cowling is shredded. The engine is producing maybe 40% power. It is vibrating so badly that Johnson's vision is blurred. Controls, the rudder cables are frayed. He has to hold constant pressure to keep the nose straight. The ailerons are sluggish. The flaps are dead. Hydraulics, gone. The landing gear is held up by the mechanical locks. He has no brakes. Radio dead. He is a ghost. No one knows he is alive. The rest of his squadron is likely back at Manston, drinking coffee, writing him off as MIA. He checks his compass. It's spinning lazily. He looks at the sun. It's in the west. England is north. He banks gently, terrified that a steep turn will stall the heavy wing. He flies by instinct. He listens to the engine. Chugga-chugga-bang. Every backfire makes him flinch. "Come on, Jug," he mutters, patting the side of the cockpit. "Get me home, just get me over the beach." He thinks about the Germans. 15, maybe 16 of them. They hit him with everything they had. 20 cannons, machine guns. They swarmed him like angry wasps. And they failed. They failed because they couldn't solve the puzzle of a broken machine. They expected the P-47 to act like an airplane. Instead, it acted like a tank tumbling down a hill. Johnson realizes the irony. If his engine had been healthy, he probably would have died. He would have tried to fight them. He would have tried to turn, to climb, to use energy he didn't have. He would have presented a stable target. The failure was his armor. 10 minutes pass, then 20. The white cliffs of Dover should be visible. He sees a dark line on the horizon. Land. Tears prick his eyes. It's the coast. But now he has a new problem. Altitude. He is at 200 feet. To cross the cliffs, he needs 500. He gently nudges the throttle forward. The engine protests. Bang! A cloud of black smoke erupts from the exhaust. The vibration increases. Sorry, Johnson whispers. "I know it hurts." He trades airspeed for altitude. He pulls the nose up, bleeding off speed. 160 mph. 150 mph. The cliffs loom closer. He clears the edge of the cliff by 50 feet. He sees the green fields of England. He sees cows. He sees a farmhouse. He is home. Now he needs an airfield. He can't bail out. He is too low. If he jumps, the chute won't open. He has to ride it down. He spots a grass strip ahead. It's Manston, the emergency field. The runway is wide, designed for crippled bombers. He lines up. He has no flaps to slow down. He has no hydraulics to lower the gear. He has to pump the gear down manually. There is a hand pump on the floor. He lets go of the stick with his left hand and grabs the pump handle. He pumps, clunkwoosh, 1 pump, 2. He needs 50 pumps to lock the gear. The plane is drifting. He grabs the stick, corrects, then pumps again. He is fighting the plane, the engine, and his own exhaustion. He sees the red indicators on the panel, or where they used to be. He feels the mechanical thud of the gear locking into place. Down and locked. But he has no brakes, and he is coming in fast, 140 mph, to keep the damaged wing from stalling. He crosses the threshold of the runway. He chops the throttle. The engine dies instantly. It doesn't sputter, it just stops. The propeller windmills to a halt. The silence is shocking. The wheels touch the grass. Bump. The P-47 is a heavy beast. It carries momentum. It rolls and rolls and rolls. It is heading for the end of the runway. There is a line of trees. Johnson kicks the rudder pedals. He tries to ground loop the plane, to spin it around to scrub off speed. The tail wheel catches. The P-47 swings around in a cloud of dust and grass. It slides sideways, the tires screaming if they were on pavement, but on grass they tear up the turf. It comes to a stop 20 feet from a parked Spitfire. Johnson sits in the cockpit. He can hear the ticking of the cooling metal. He can smell the grass. He tries to open the canopy. It's jammed. The fuselage is twisted from the combat damage. He hammers on the glass with his fist. "Let me out, let me out." A ground crewman runs up. He climbs onto the wing. He looks at Johnson. He looks at the oil. He looks at the holes. "My God, Yank," the Brit says. "Did you fly through a flak tower?" "I flew through the whole Luftwaffe," Johnson croaks. They pry the canopy open with a crowbar. Johnson climbs out. His legs give way. He falls onto the wing. He looks at his plane. It is unrecognizable. The rudder is gone. The elevator is shredded. There are 21 20 cannon holes in the fuselage. There are over 200 machine gun holes. The propeller has a hole in it you could put your fist through. And the engine. Johnson walks to the nose. He looks inside the cowling. One cylinder is completely sheared off. Another is hanging by a thread. The crankcase is cracked. It shouldn't have run. It physically shouldn't have been able to turn the prop. "How?" Johnson whispers. "How did you do it?" He touches the hot metal. He realizes that the P-47 isn't just a machine. It's a fortress. It took the punishment that would have disintegrated a Spitfire or a Mustang, and it brought him home. A jeep pulls up. It's his squadron commander, Colonel Hubert "Hub" Zemke. Zemke looks at the plane. He walks around it slowly. He counts the holes. He shakes his head. "Johnson," Zemke says, "I marked you down as KIA. I saw you fall out of formation. I saw them swarm you." "I decided not to die today, Colonel," Johnson says. "I can see that." Zemke points to the tail. "You have a hole in your horizontal stabilizer that I can crawl through." "The engine quit over the runway, sir." "It quit," Zemke laughs. "Son, that engine quit over France. It just didn't know it yet." They drive Johnson to the hospital. He has minor shrapnel wounds, chemical burns from the hydraulic fluid, and a bruised ego. But he is alive. And he has a story that will become legend. The story of Robert S. Johnson's survival spreads through the 8th Air Force like wildfire. It becomes a parable, a lesson. The lesson is, never bail out of a Thunderbolt until it's on fire. Johnson is back in the cockpit 2 days later. He gets a new plane. He names it Pint II. But something has changed in him. He is no longer the rookie who makes mistakes in the turn. He is a man who has stared into the barrel of an executioner's gun and refused to blink. He applies the lessons of that day. He learns that the P-47's strength is its ability to absorb punishment and its dive speed. He stops trying to dogfight Focke-Wulfs. He starts using the boom and zoom tactic exclusively. He becomes a predator. By the end of the war, Robert S. Johnson is one of the top American aces in the European theater. He scores 27 confirmed kills. He destroys the best the Luftwaffe has to offer. But he never forgets Egon Mayer. Months later, intelligence reports confirm that Oberstleutnant Egon Mayer was shot down and killed in March 1944 by a P-47 Thunderbolt. Johnson wonders if Mayer remembered him. He wonders if the German ace, in his final moments, thought about the crippled, oil-soaked plane that refused to die. After the war, Johnson returns to the United States. He writes a book, Thunderbolt, which becomes the Bible for P-47 enthusiasts. He visits the Republic Aviation Factory in Farmingdale, New York. He meets the engineers who designed the R-2800 engine. He tells them the story. He tells them about the cylinder that blew off. He tells them about the vibration. One engineer, an old man with thick glasses, listens intently. "Mr. Johnson," the engineer says, "the R-2800 has a limp-home mode designed into the master rod assembly. If a cylinder fails, the counterweights are designed to balance the vibration just enough to keep the crankshaft from shearing. It wasn't luck. It was engineering." Johnson smiles. It felt like luck. "And the slipping?" the engineer asks. "The wallowing?" "That was me," Johnson says. "I was fighting the controls." "No," the engineer corrects him. "The P-47 has a large keel surface area. When the engine torque is asymmetrical, the fuselage acts like a weather vane. It naturally slips to find aerodynamic equilibrium. The plane was trying to stabilize itself. You and the plane were dancing together." Johnson thinks about that, the machine and the man. The legacy of that day lives on in the design of future aircraft. The concept of survivability, armor plating, redundant systems, rugged airframes, becomes a cornerstone of American military aviation. The A-10 Warthog, the flying tank of the modern era, is the spiritual successor to Johnson's P-47. Johnson dies in 1998. He is buried with full military honors. At the funeral, a flight of 4 P-47 Thunderbolts, surviving warbirds, performs a flyover. They fly in the missing man formation. As they pass over the cemetery, the lead plane pulls up and climbs into the clouds. The sound of those R-2800 engines, that deep, guttural roar, shakes the ground. An old veteran standing by the grave leans over to his grandson. "Do you hear that?" the veteran asks. "Yes, Grandpa, it's loud." "That's the sound of safety," the veteran says. "That's the sound of a machine that loves you." The veteran points to the sky. "Bob Johnson didn't outsmart those Germans because he was a genius," the veteran says. "He outsmarted them because he didn't give up, and because he was flying a brick." "A brick?" the boy asks. "The fastest, toughest brick in the world." The P-47 fades into the distance. The silence returns. But the story remains. It is the story of how a broken engine, a blinded pilot, and a stubborn refusal to die turned a massacre into a miracle. It is the story of the day the Luftwaffe emptied its guns into a ghost, and the ghost flew home.